Okay, hello everybody. Happy Tuesday. I know that we usually do Capital Catch Up on Mondays, but if you can't tell, the weather has gotten to me a little bit. But we're going to make do today. We've got a lot to talk about. They had a little bit of a break that the second week that we did Capital Catch Up, but they definitely did a lot in the last week. So we're just going to jump right into it. If you're new to Capital Catch Up, this is your weekly recap of what the legislature has been up to for the last week. So this is Monday through Friday of last week. And then if we're able to, we'll talk a little bit about what we expect for this week. So obviously, the biggest thing that we're seeing is that the Senate has officially killed House Bill 2. And House Bill 2 was the school choice bill that was put forth by, Representative Owen, who is one of our local legislators, and some other people was put forth by the House. It narrowly passed there to begin with, and we talked to a lot of senators who said they did not plan on voting yes on that. So not sure if it's, so much of a surprise or if we expected it to go back and forth. This was kind of one of those bills, even, Representative Owen had said it himself, that really it's just meant to get that conversation started. And there are a lot of other bills that were filed that are somewhat similar, but not as, high priority as this one was. So that did happen. However, they did pass another one of Representative Owen's bills, and this was House Bill 1126, and this was one of the teacher pay raises. So we talked about last week how the Senate put forth some of their own bills for teacher pay raises and how the House has put forth some of their own bills for teacher pay raises. So House Bill 2 included some teacher pay raises. It talked about that within it, but Representative Owen also wrote a separate bill for teacher pay raises. So we're going to talk a little bit about what House Bill 1126 has in it. So, and I'm going to make sure I'm getting my notes here for you guys. So a $5,000 raise to teachers who have a bachelor's degree. So this is your average teacher, primary teacher who has received some kind of formal education. This bill would allow them to get a $5,000 salary raise. On top of that, there is a 6K supplement to therapists and psychologists who are on campus. It would close the 45-day gap that teachers go through between the holidays, so they get their last paycheck right before they leave for Thanksgiving, and then they don't see another paycheck until they go back in January, which is a very long time to go without a paycheck. So this closes that gap and basically says that you would be paid based off of your usual time, your last clock out, and you would still get paid within the same month as you normally would as a teacher. So it also gives a 3K supplement to SPED teachers and people who teach within special education. And it also does not, however, give a pay raise to assistant teachers, which I know just based off of everyone that I've talked to, this was something that is very high priority for teachers and education at the moment, which is to get some teacher pay raises for assistants. However, it does give lawmakers the ability in the future to give them a pay raise. So it does have the wording in there that says they can come back next year and edit this bill to give assistant teachers a pay raise. So we're going to hear a little bit from Owen. He's going to, I was able to talk to him when I was up at the Capitol, and he's going to talk a little bit about this bill and why it's important overall to have some kind of bill, even if it's not his, be put forth and passed to get some teacher pay raises.
Under that dome right there, nothing's ever safe to say. All right. I know there's consensus on both sides of this building to ensure that our teachers are paid. Exactly how that happens, that's left up to the process, and we have a long time before we have finality on that. But I do believe that both sides of the building want to make sure we continue increasing teacher pay so we can remain competitive in the Southeast, but across the country for teacher recruitment purposes.
So this is not the only bill. This is the bill that they've taken up so far, but there are dozens of bills that talk about teacher pay raises. Now, the one that the Senate put forth only does $2,000 for teachers, but it does include assistant teachers. And there are some other ones that I've seen all the way up to 10,000, 15,000, some big raises. And when I was having this conversation with multiple senators and representatives, I was told that the goal really is for these bills, for one of them to pass, hopefully, and for them to go back and forth and hopefully keep raising that number. So that's what's going on with teacher pay raises. Of course, you guys, if you have any questions, I'm able to read the comments, so put them down in the comments, and I will try to answer them about any of these bills. So let's talk about some bills that have died. This was the week of bills dying, and the reason that is because the committee deadlines came through. So anything that the committee did not get to or did not ultimately come up with an amendment to, or that they felt comfortable putting through, that has all died this week. So we're going to talk about some that our local legislators put through that you guys maybe have an interest in, and we're going to start with Representative Chuck Blackwell. So this specifically goes to my Ellisville residents out there. So he had originally put forth a House Bill 707, which would make it so that the sheriff's office could use radars, but it was only for a very specific part of Highway 11 that is near the entrance of Jones College, and that highway is a school zone anyways, because and we could speak to this as well, there are a lot of accidents that we see on Highway 11, and so his goal was to hopefully diminish some of those accidents, but that ultimately died in committee. So I'll definitely be reaching out to Mr. Blackwell to see if he plans on trying to pursue this again next year. Amaria Scott's radar, basically all of the radar bills got shut down, but not all of them, but a lot of them. So we'll come back to the ones that didn't, the ones that made it through. So on top of that, this was a big talk of the town, which was House Bill 1312, which Representative Blackwell put his name beside. He did not author it, but he did co-author it, which is the Purple Angels Law, which copies what Tennessee has recently done in the last year and creates an online registry for domestic violence offenders. So people who have gone to jail, to be on the list, you would have had to gone to jail, been found guilty, convicted of some kind of domestic violent crime, and served time. And then after you've done that, if you're a repeat offender and you've done that 3 times, you would have been put on this registry, very similar to a sex offender registry. But that did not pass. Now, as to why it didn't make it out of committee, I'm not sure. So definitely going to reach out to Mr. Blackwell about that, especially considering that it seemed like it had a lot of support, and it had outside support from other nonprofits who were really backing this bill, and it did not make it out of committee. And Tennessee has already done something similar, so I think that they were feeling pretty confident that it would. But it also, on the same foot, it's same hand, it still has its opposers. So on top of other things that have died in committee, a lot of Representative Amaria Scott's bills died in committee, and that includes her curbside voting, her same-day registration, and one that I saw brought up a lot, which was the taking away tasers and guns from law enforcement officers. So those all died in committee. Now, one of hers that did stay alive was that parolees can get a reduction of time based off of if they're a part of faith-based activities. So it creates a system where if they get involved in a Bible study, or if they go do a church lesson in the chapel or something, if they get involved, they're doing community service, then they can get some of their time reduced. Now she put forth 2 bills, and this one is the one that ended up passing, or not passing, but making it out of committee. And I think that is because it includes that parolee part. So now it no longer can really apply to violent offenders, because a lot of violent offenders do not get parole. They have to serve their entire sentence no matter what. So that is what she's got. And of course, we're going to talk about what is still alive next time. The goal here is there's thousands upon thousands of bills, so we can't talk about every single one that is put forth, but we're going to talk about the ones that die as it kind of happens. So here is what was sent to the governor last week, and that was House Bill 325, and we also talked about this last week during our session, we talked a little bit about what it is. So House Bill 325 is a redistribution of lottery funds. If you remember 10 years ago, whenever we finally got the lottery in Mississippi, they said that the funds would go to MDOT. So the first 80 million would go to MDOT. And then after that 80 million had been reached, then the rest of the funds would need to go to the educational fund. So the rest of the money needs to go to the educational fund. So that still applies here. However, they've added new stuff because after the 10 years, it needed to be, there was a kind of a clause that said they needed to reevaluate how they wanted to keep using this money. So after the 10 years, they decided to keep that, keep the MDOT and keep the education fund. However, they've added in now that every month, $3 million would need to go into the state general fund. So that is different, and it'll be interesting to see if it will take longer for MDOT to reach that 80 million goal for that money to then make it to its third destination, which would be the education fund. So unsure of whether it's going to take longer, if it's going to actually impact it. There's obviously some other little tweaks in the bill that redistribute money. There's another thing that says a little extra money needs to go into another fund. So that is what that is. So I know that obviously we've seen a lot of road work going on, and the lottery really helped Mississippi be able to fix up a lot of its roads. So that is going to be interesting to see. Now, here is a couple little things that have been passed by the House, just some random things, mostly health-based that I think are interesting, and we talked about last week, the biomarker testing. So this is a similar bill which would require health insurance to offer coverage for genetic testing for inherited mutation and evidence-based cancer imaging. So this is specifically for cancer. The biomarker has already passed, and now this one has also passed. And in addition to that, another bill passed, which was House Bill 856, and this gives advanced metastatic cancer. It makes it so that insurance companies cannot require a step therapy before covering other drugs to treat it. So if there is a drug that your doctor says will 100% cure your metastatic cancer, but your insurance is saying, no, you need to do X, Y, and Z before we're willing to cover that, this bill would make it so they cannot do that anymore. Basically, if it is something that is evidence-based and will 100% cure it, then we need to just go ahead and go straight to that option. Now, one of our local legislators, Representative Missy McGee, has been able to send a couple healthcare bills to the Senate as well this year. She had a lot of ones that were successful, and we're specifically going to talk about House Bill 1637. And she kind of quoted that her goal of this year was to get Mississippi off of some of our bad lists, some of the ones that we're at the top of that we don't want to be at the top of. And one of those is the infant mortality rate. Mississippi, in the last year especially, has had a very rough time with this, and even the Mississippi Department of Health has had to send out a public crisis saying, we need to fix this. We have too many infants dying, too many moms dying, and there's something going on. So at the moment, how they decide, the Mississippi Department of Health they have to take all of the deaths from 0 to 18 years old, and they put those all together, and they say, okay, how many are dying? What's the age of these children who are dying? What is going on? And that is their numbers they push out. They'll say that this X amount of children died this year, and this was the leading cause of it. Now, Missy McGee says that since we now have a crisis with infant mortality, neonatal mortality, then we need to be more focused on what is going on in the birthing unit at the hospital that is leading to these infants passing away very shortly after birth or during birth. Because if it's an infant passing away, then they're going to die in a very different way than maybe a teenager would. So she says that it's really important to make sure that they are separating those studies. So she's put forth a bill. This bill makes sure that they will separate those studies so that we can really see what is going on, what is happening.
Babies die for a lot different reasons than older children do. And we're hoping with that information we can really dig in and understand what's happening to our babies that are not seeing their first birthday.
So yeah, so that's really what it comes down to, is what is going on, and making sure that we get some better information, better data going forward, and hopefully that information will lead to a decrease in the infant mortality within Mississippi. I personally am not sure how it will go through, or I'm saying in the way of, I've seen a lot of bills that seem really simple that are just asking for someone to do a study that have died, but this one has not. So I'm interested to see what the Senate decides to do with it. I think that it is pretty simple, and obviously it is an issue within Mississippi. Whether they decide that this is the right route to go, it's definitely a topic that I feel is probably important to a lot of people. So we'll talk a little bit about what is called title stuff that passes. So title stuff is what's been sent to the committee that is good to go. It didn't really need any committee help. The bill is fine, so we're just going to push it right through. It doesn't need to be voted on right now. Just send it right to be voted on the floor, on the House floor, the Senate floor. So that's what this is. So these are some things I think are really interesting because they have been put up year after year after year after year and never make it. They always die. So one of those, which has, I will say after yesterday, has officially been passed in the House, was the ability for the state to provide free community college tuition to CTE students. So that's career technical students who are focusing on doing electrician work. They're going to do HVAC work. They want to be a carpenter. They want to they want to get a CTE degree for nursing, a 2-year degree in nursing. So your career technical, these are ones where you don't have to take any of those prerequisites. You're just going there. You're going to be ready to enter the workforce within 2 years of graduating. So this would give those students who are enrolled in a CTE program free college tuition. And a lot of our local community colleges already offer really high scholarships for these kind of degrees. So this is obviously something that Mississippi has been pushing, even the governor has been pushing, getting more people involved in CTE degrees. That way we can avoid the Mississippi drain brain that we currently have and keep people at Mississippi colleges working in Mississippi. So that kind of aligns overall with what the governor has said that his goals are for the year, and it's interesting to see some free money for college kind of coming back through the legislature. Now, these are two that I know some people are either going to be 100% for or 100% against, and that is House Bill 669 and House Bill 674. 669 allows the selling and shipping of wine directly to residents in Mississippi. So you have a certain brand of wine that they only sell in Louisiana, and you are so tired of driving to Louisiana to go get it. Well, this says that you could get it shipped to you. How much easier, right? However, obviously, these still need to be voted on, so keep that in mind. So 674 allows wine only, to be sold at grocery stores. So this would be, I kind of think when you go to Corner Market, right, they do sell some alcohol, but it's in a separate building. So that is the law at the moment, is that you cannot sell liquor and wine in a grocery store. It has to be a separate building. It has to be a separate, unit. And so there's this, because of this law, there's also a lot of grocery stores or certain kind of businesses that Mississippi is not able to get. So a lot of people ask us, why can't we have a Trader Joe's in Hattiesburg, or Trader Joe's anywhere in Mississippi? This is one of the reasons why. Trader Joe's sells wine on their shelves, and they would be required to change their building layout to add a separate building to be able to have a wine cooler. So those are the two. Now, there was another one that did not pass, and that is the sale of alcohol on Sundays. That still did not pass. That one's been put through years and years and years, and it did not work this year. Now, what else from our local people were under title stuff that does pass? And this was one that did have a little bit of an amendment. And this is Senator Joey Fillingane's Senate Bills 2710. So this bill cracks down on the state and the national, it's a whole national issue, which is the uptick that we're seeing in juvenile crime, especially murders. We're seeing a lot of teenagers specifically getting involved in crime and killing someone, and it's only getting worse is what we're seeing. And so what Senator Fillingane told me was that he had a lot of mayors, a lot of municipalities come up to him and say, listen, we've got to crack down on this. It's getting worse. It's horrible. I think we saw a perfect example of this when we saw 3 shootings in one night in Mississippi back when Heidelberg experienced one and 2 other places did, and they were all teenagers. So this cracks down on that, and specifically it makes the punishment for teenagers who commit felony crimes, capital felony crimes, capital murder, first degree murder, felony crimes, they would still need to face the consequences for that, and the consequences would be different than what it would be usually for youth court. So here's what he has to say about that.
The mayors have come to us and said, look, this system is not working. We're seeing this huge increase in violent murders committed by essentially teenagers, like kids. What can we do about that? So the Attorney General's office, the Prosecutors Association, everyone that has looked at this has said, look, we have got to make sure that certain crimes, if they reach a certain point of being, costing life, then we're going to have to put those directly into the circuit court system, take it out of the youth court and bring them straight into the circuit adult court system and try them essentially as adults.
So you heard it straight from him. This bill makes it so that teenagers who commit a felony would need to be tried as an adult almost, automatically, depending obviously on the situation around that crime. But if the crime was particularly gruesome, if the crime was a felony that an adult, the bill specifically says that if an adult would normally get a certain sentence for committing this felony, then a teenager who commits the same felony needs to get a similar sentence. Now, the House has not seen this bill yet, so the House will need to look at it and make a decision, and then who knows, maybe they'll put it in a committee, maybe they'll vote on it right away, maybe they'll kill it, and maybe it'll be over. But there are a lot of bills that focus specifically on juvenile crime and how we can lower that. This is only one way that somebody has put forth that they think could ultimately lower the juvenile crime, record. So we're wrapping up here. We're just going to talk about some things that just died this week that have been popular throughout the entire year. And one of those was, Tate Reeves had been talking a lot about this, which is House Bill 553, which prohibits SNAP recipients from purchasing candy and soft drinks. That died. So that did not go through. That will not be seen again this year. I did not see another bill like this, but I will go back and look. But did not make it out of committee. And yeah, that's it. That was the general one. I wanted to talk about that because we had been talking about it a lot in the earlier, near the summer of last year is when it kind of started coming up. So I wanted to talk about and say that did in fact die. So that's all I have for this week. I do want to say, obviously, once again, I don't cover every single thing that they do. I only cover the things that I think are impactful for us as an entire state, or are impactful specifically to the Pine Belt, the ones that I think our Pine Belt residents care about, the ones that I notice you guys commenting about, asking us about. Those are the ones I really focus on. So please feel free to comment below or shoot us an email at info@wdam.com about a certain bill that you want to know about. What does this bill mean? Brooke, can you please dissect this for me? And we definitely will. And if you didn't know, once again, you can go to MississippiLegislator.com and you can see everything. If you click the second tab on the top bar, it will bring up a thing that says Daily Action Reports, and that is everything that they have done in the day. So you can look at that, you can see what's going on. You can also click on the House authors versus Senate authors and look specifically for yours and see what they still have alive in the legislature and see if any of them matter to you. Remember, you can always reach out to your legislature. They work for you, their constituents, of course. So if you didn't know, this is the last week that we're going to be on Facebook with Capital Catch Up. We're moving everything on over to our news app or our Roku or Fire TV stick. So if you have any of those, make sure that you watch us on there. If you don't have our app, make sure you download it. You will always be the first person to know about news, breaking news, live streams. You get to watch our shows right from your phone, completely free. You don't need cable. So make sure you do that, and I'll see you next week on the app. Thanks, guys.